My name is Vivienne. This is my story, how I've journeyed from trauma to healing. I was born in the early 80s in Jamaica. My father didn't accept me. There was news that I wasn't his child. My mom got pregnant at a very young age of 14. The act of her becoming pregnant was out of her control. Right. Later on, I remember my mom, she would get angry saying, "What are you looking for?" Or she would say, "We must turn our heads to the corner." It was because it was a one room. She have to have intimate relations, and therefore you would have to turn your head the other way in order to not see what's taking place. I was around 4 and 6. I was visiting my grandmother and a cousin. He was an older male, and I remember I was laying on the bed sleeping. I had noticed that he started to put his finger inside my vagina. I wasn't taught that that was wrong. When I was about 8 years old, another parent then come and join, which is classified as a step parent. And I remember there wasn't a door on the room. There was this particular day I began to get beaten. I can't tell you what I've done, but according to my mom, she said she caught me peeping through the door. I was beaten so badly that the day when I managed to go to school, it was so bad that I couldn't keep my head up that day. So I was in so much pain. I had to keep my head down. So I literally couldn't learn anything. As they say, I wasn't a bright child. So I wasn't able to learn much according to what I was told and how I was treated. So no one knew, no one noticed, no one said anything. We carried on. I had to look after my siblings. It was always that I was more of a Cinderella. I learned to wash the dishes, clean the floor, go to shop. So I always did that from a very early age. I remember one of the most severe time was there was an injury to my mom's finger from work. My brother at the time wasn't well, and so he needed to go to the doctors, and I had to take him at 9 years old. I remember walking along the street. A lot of people was coming out and was looking at me, was kind of cheering me on, like, "Well done for doing that, you're a good girl," etc. So I was about 10 when I moved to that new community. I remember living in that yard, and there was this woman, she had a dad. So he was maybe, from the looks of it, maybe in his 60s or something like that. And there was an outside bathroom, and every time I would have a shower outside, I would always catch him just standing there and just watching me. And I remember there was a couple times he would touch on my breast. I didn't take it for nothing because I was never taught about any kind of privacy or body safety. It was always a beating. There was never a time when I've been spoken to. If it's not a beating, it's a curse word. I then had a friend who she was around the same age as me. I would get a beating if my mom catches me with her. There was this particular incident, something to do with money. Someone broke her house and took her money. Some armed robbers. After the incident, my mom blamed me and said it was me. Those guys who came to rob her, those were my men. I'm with them. I'm sleeping with them. I used to argue with my stepdad that he's not my father. And I remember there was a particular day I was washing some clothing. He must have said something. And when he said it, I said, "You're not my dad." And he got a machete and he started to beat me with it. And that was it. There was no care for me. And I noticed he never hit his child, never hit him. Not once. I never saw him. He had permission to beat me. It didn't cut me. but you would hold it in a way where somebody would use the palm of their hand. So rather doing chopping motion, it would use it as like a belt to slap me with it. Nothing came of it. My mother never said anything. There was an Easter holiday coming up, and I remember my mom saying that she's gonna send me to my aunt for the Easter holiday. And till today, that holiday hasn't ended. My mother literally tricked me into sending me away. A particular night, I must have fell asleep. I was laying on my back, and she said, the way how you're lying on your back sleeping, there is a whole heap of wood waiting for you. So let me break that down in English term. The way I'm laying on my back, there's a whole heap of penis waiting for me. I didn't get it. It didn't make sense to me. But when she took me to my aunt had a partner at the time. And I remember my mom standing in front of my aunt. That man, he was somewhat a stranger to me. I wasn't close to him, so he was still a stranger. And I remember her words was that she take white fowl blood. You know the chickens that they raise to grow so they can sell them? She said she'd take that and wash her hands of me in front of my aunt and this gentleman. I then noticed later he would somewhat be nice to me. So he would give me things. When the ice cream man's coming, he will give me some money to go and get it. Stuff that young girls would want. Over about 2 years, he would do these things. Anytime I'm in the shower, he would come and he would stand there. So I remember as he did that over a period of time, he started to say stuff like, oh, you are not a virgin. Look how much boys around you. Well, I didn't know that kind of statement was someone lighting you up, preparing you for what's coming next. As soon as I touched 14, he just backed me down one day in my auntie's room on the ground, and he took my innocence away from me. It would happen every day and every night, so he wouldn't leave me alone. But I would try and say something to my auntie like, what is it I'm dealing with? And I know she used to run me away, like, leave me alone. It then set the stage for what happened next. I'm definitely alone. I realized that no one's gonna save me. I was in that same age bracket, 14, when it happened, and he would have sex with me before I go to school, and he would do it in the night. So there would be ways how he would sneak in the room. My cousins would be in the same room with me, but no one saw, and I couldn't speak because also he was somewhat some kind of rebel. He had a machine gun or he had guns. So even if I had tried to speak up, it means I'm potentially at risk. So I wouldn't have said anything. Things got really bad because I even start to feel more detached from self. I never had any connection with me. Growing up, I also really and truly hated myself because I used to think that I was ugly. I never liked my skin. I used to think that something is wrong with me. That was how I saw me. And so when things got to what it got to, I started to fight a lot. I fought a lot in school. So it was always anger, aggression, stuff. And I remember there was this particular day I went to school and I got in a fight. And the head teacher said, I'm tired of seeing you in my office. That hit me, and I took my stuff and I left the school and I never went back. My aunt and her partner at the time said to me that I can't stay in their house if I'm not going to school. I had to start finding my way out. So as I started to sleep with people for finance, sleep with people for money. So it doesn't matter how small it was, I would do it just so I can help myself to buy my books, for my travels, whatever I needed. I think it was enough to bear on my own, and I started to smoke. From cigarettes, you oftentimes elevate, you get to something stronger to ease and to soothe those years of trauma and pain. And so I started to smoke eventually. And obviously, you have to pay for it. So you're going to have to find a way to get it. Eventually, I started to drink as well. Those two combining together, I was extremely numb to the core. So when I would have lay with anyone or do whatever they asked me to do for money, I wouldn't have felt anything. I was literally numb to the core. As I continued that journey, it continued. And I would say what my mother, I call it a curse. What she did place on me that day eventually came to pass. I didn't understand at first, but as things gone by and over the years, I look and see how it happened. I can see, and there's a key thing that I observed, and I still know till this day. The same age where my mom told me that she got raped is exactly the same age I too got raped. And to me, that spoke volume. Like, I've got a daughter, and I would have never allowed her to fall in that trap. Like, I would have done anything to make sure. And from a very early age, I started to educate my daughter, like, don't you sit on someone, no one allowed to touch you, stuff like that, just to not to let that happen, because it is scary. It makes you feel like, literally, because you can't feel anything. So I would lay with somebody for money to buy whatever, maybe it's food or for travels or clothes, whatever. And I will see the same person the next day or 2 days later, and I will walk past them like they're nobody, like they don't exist, because I wasn't able to connect with anybody. I was so lost. Another thing that really gets me is that before it got to that, no one said anything. No family, no aunties, none of them spoke up and said, look, the way you're treating this child is wrong. No one said anything. I don't hate her. I'm actually sorry for her. This is why I come to the understanding that enough is enough. I'm not gonna be like her, because I was heading towards that same path. So years I would struggle with my mental health. So for a good, I would say the worst part was for a good maybe about 15 years of my life, I was in a cycle, unwell over and over, couldn't get well. So even if I was well for 6 months, I would fall unwell again. So things just wouldn't stabilize in my life. I didn't know that it was all the years of abuse. I initially, and most of the people who came in contact with me, they judged me a lot. That started to manifest when I had my first child at 21. When my mom gave me away to my aunts, I remember that it was a 7-year period where she did nothing for me. She would never bought me underwear. She never checked if I'm going to school. There was nothing. It was like I never existed. So after that 7-year period and all that I've been through, sleeping around for money, all this kind of stuff, I heard she was coming to the UK, and I left from the city where I was living in to go and see her in another city where she was living in, just so I could give her the last 20 pounds I had. I was still that child, still trying to get some acceptance, I remember it was the last £20. I said, if I send it to Western Union, it's not going to be £20 anymore. So I'm going to have to try and get the money, go down there and give it to her. Because I said, at least when she reach, she can use it to buy a phone card to call to say she got there safe. I believe also that was a seed that I sowed on a spiritual level without even knowing. Because after that 7-year period of that turmoil life, I did accomplish quite a lot, I would say, because I was working for a hotel where I did got my level 1 qualification. I had that determination. I wanted to improve myself. So I then came to the UK, and that was another hell. I was going through a lot through the passing, through immigration. There was a lot of back and forth and issues that arise. They didn't want to let me in. They literally gave me a no entry, which is 24 hours in the country. Stuff happened, really, really dangerous stuff happened, but I was able to get through it and starting to figure it out. And eventually I was able to achieve and to accomplish my right to live in the country, to be able to obtain my citizenship. And I did it all single-handed without her help. I would say God never left my side. That was the only thing I had. I didn't have an identity. I didn't have any confidence. Self-worth? What was that? I didn't know what that looked like, what that meant. In my relationship I had with my children's father, I would sometimes get so unwell, little things, and I will be angry, I will be aggressive, I want to fight him, I will smash something, I will probably want to go away. I will drink, I will get really drunk or want to fight. So when things will happen like that, the police would get involved. Sometimes I would call them or someone else would call them. Social services was in my life for a good 9 years, 10-year period. So they would be involved because I would get unwell. And so things will happen and back and forth. And so they will always refer me to some kind of family therapy, family counseling. So, and then I would start to do individual counseling. So it started to bring some awareness, and what's really going on, because I never understood that all of this was connected. And over time, I started to read and hear people talk about trauma and the effects and the impacts, stuff like that. I remember there was a time I had attempted to take myself away, take my life, was several times prior. But this particular time, I remember from that, it caused the same social services to get involved. And I remember it was so horrific that I was told, if anything happened again, we're going to take the children. And I believe that was a wake-up call to start properly healing myself, because I love my children. I've always loved them. I never not wanted them. So for them, I was willing to do whatever it takes. So I started to do CBD therapy. And I remember my mother came up in it a lot, but still there was no connection. No one understood what I was saying, because it was all peace, 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 peace. And also I believe my then partner, he somewhat presented a lot similar to my mom. And so I felt like I was dealing with the same person all over again. So I couldn't have a peace. I was very unhappy. So I would still hide, I would smoke, I would drink, stuff like that. From that, I remember learning how to sit with what I felt. I had severe anxiety, so I was always on edge. So by the time, some people would say on a scale of 1 to 10, but I was always at 10. So the minute something happened, I'm out, I'm ready, I'm yelling, I'm screaming, I'm angry, I'm aggressive, I'm violent, as they would say, but just didn't understand. So she started telling me to sit with how I'm feeling and let it pass. But still, that after a certain time, I learned that technique and I started to sit with it. But it still didn't fully bring clarity. But I remember I started getting dreams and visions, and I tried to connect or get closer to God in order to help me. I wanted to change. I needed to figure out what was wrong with me. And I remember just going in little courses, more reading, just listening to different things on the social media when people talking about trauma. No, what is this trauma? Stuff like that. For years, I started to buy books. One of my favorite is Nurturing Resilience. I started to connect because I realized that trauma is not in the mind. It's more so in the body. So all those years of can't cry, can't express self, all of those being beaten, not being heard, not being loved, no kindness, no gentleness, all of those damage the organs in the body. And so you're in a frozen state. Because initially my outlook was mental health. I saw that I was mentally unwell, not understanding that wasn't the problem. It was the trauma that was presenting or coming out from that aspect. And so I remember so that was one of my favorite books. Then eventually I started to work in mental health recovery. So that kind of helped me to swing a bit deeper, not only just mental health on surface, but I started to understand the different symptoms, the different diagnoses. And as I worked in that environment, I'm then observing others. There were similarities between us, even though the stories weren't the same. And I start learning about the somatic and about the nervous system and understanding how different organs holds trauma and how it plays out in our everyday life, in our health, in how we respond and relate. I stopped being ashamed. I stopped worrying about what other people think about me. And also, there was one thing I gathered in all of what I learned was self-compassion. So even if it's the worst situation, I'm learning to say, hey, Viv, you're going to be okay, girl. You've got this. I love you. I learned to start saying I love myself. I learned to be kind to myself. I had a journal that when I was unwell, I would write horrible things about myself. And I remember when I started to heal, I would go to that journal and I would cross out all the thing that I said negative, and I start to replace them underneath it. I would write some nice things about myself, and I would start look in the mirror where I used to say, I hate you. I start to look and I say, hey, you know how beautiful you are. I love you. You're such a special person. So I begin to say things to myself that I would have wanted somebody else to say to me and didn't get it. I would say I'm definitely successful because I'm able to be 100 times over better mom than I was raised with, and also my children, they too can say, Mom, you come a long way. They were a part of the journey. I was that person who was judged. I was misunderstood. And so it doesn't matter. I've said it to women who's around and about me. It doesn't matter what you tell me. You can never get me to look down on you. I will always help you up. And if I can't do anything, just know that I'm here for you. If you or anyone is experiencing any kind of trauma, pain, abuse, Do not keep it to yourself because it doesn't get any better on your own. Find someone you can trust and speak to them. If you don't know anyone you can trust, find a stranger, talk to them and leave. Someone told me about that story years ago. If you have trouble, just find somebody in a park, just say everything you want to say, because you don't know them, and then you can leave. But make sure you don't keep it to yourself, because keeping it to yourself doesn't help. And also, you are not alone. I can tell you, there is a tribe out there waiting to just celebrate you and empower you, encourage you, and just vibe with you. You are more loved, more wanted, more desired than you can ever know. You are special. You are unique.